So today we have Jocelyn Brown, who you all know well. She's been on a bunch of these calls, always participating, just like many of you. Also, thanks. There's about half of you on camera, but for the rest of you, if you can jump on, that'd be awesome. No worries if you're eating or doing any of those things. It's all good. It's casual. So Jocelyn runs, she's the head of customer success and sales over at Hypercontext. Her previous experience is in some of the enterprise world. So we'll talk a little bit about, so Hypercontext is a pretty early stage company, and we can kind of talk about how they're thinking through their strategy there, as well as bringing some of that enterprise thinking to a product-led company. So anyways, with that quick intro, over to you, Jocelyn. Feel free to kind of dive into what you think makes sense and start start from the top.
Yeah, so Breezy asked, and I'm happy to contribute to the community, but I do not claim to have any answers at all. So this is a discussion for sure, and happy to answer any questions around what we've figured out. So as Breezy said, my background is, at least my software background is in enterprise. I worked in the marketing automation space and then revenue performance management. So starting in customer success, and then I eventually ran a revenue organization, had new logo sales and BDRs and account management and the lot. So when I went to Hypercontext, some of it's because I knew the founders. I'd been a customer of the product, which is a meeting app really focused on managers, trying to help it make it easier to have one-on-ones, team meetings, cross-functional meetings, goals, all the things that we ask managers to do in addition to just the day-to-day, and try and streamline it into the work they're already doing. So I'd used it and benefited from it. And I also looked at PLG and said, this is the way software is going to be sold, so I may as well get some experience in it. And so I came in really sort of not sure what was going to be there. And I've since done a little bit of experimenting of, what's worked for me in the past with no real tie to it working in the context, and what hasn't worked for me. So happy to talk about that. In terms of what we do, we're product led from the very, very beginning. As I said, we're manager focused. So we tend to get into an org at a manager level, somebody who just wants a better experience for their team or be more organized or whatever. So we could get in at a director or a team lead type level. And then we're looking to expand from there. Since we're in the calendar, that's meant to be sort of our viral loop. I've learned some interesting things about what happens in a calendar, and you can actually see the silos in companies. So those still are alive and well, based on how we do or do not spread in a company. But yeah, we'll come in at a lead or director level. They'll introduce it to their boss. We might go up and down an org. Have not found the formula to go across the org necessarily yet. As I said, depending where we land, you can see a silo where they just don't meet with other people, and our growth stops. So it's been interesting in that way. And for that's why I've been now experimenting with what's an enterprise kind of motion that we can layer on top of that once we get to a certain penetration, knowing that there's a natural stopping point where just collaboration, or the person who kind of owns the culture around meetings or otherwise, it's not common at all. So that was an interesting learning. We thought the calendar was just going to automatically put everybody in there, but it turns out there's some like actual cultural and sort of departmental and company things that stop our growth. So we really are going to need and have experienced needing emotion on top of that once we get to a certain penetration. We sign up probably somewhere, it's on our homepage every day, so you can see what we've signed up in the last 7 days, but it roughly goes between 750 and 850 orgs a week. There's a percentage of that's Google one click. So, and those have varying degrees of intent in them. So you can discount a chunk of that number as being not, intentional real signups. Our conversion from free to paid, we've got a free trial for any new trial for 2 weeks, and then you automatically downgrade to free, and you can be free forever, or obviously we've got upgrade paths. And our free to paid conversion varies anywhere from, 1.2 to 2.4%. And then we are really focused, obviously, on things like MRR, but also weekly active users, NPS. For us, one of our kind of aha moments is when people finish a meeting. It's an active thing. We've made some UI changes that's going to be much more passive. So we're probably going to reset what the other kind of aha moment is that we want to track. It used to be Calendar Connect. We sort of made the tool make that a non-event, and sort of every time we solve something, we start having to look for what's the next kind of activity engagement that we want to track to sort of see how far we can get people down the product funnel.
Okay, cool. So let me do a quick little recap here. So we have 750 to 850 people, new orgs signing up. So people signing up and creating their org per week.
Yep.
Then you're saying there's, and this is common, I think everyone on this call has felt this at some point, there's some chunk of those that you're like, that's just junk. Like that's just nothing, not going to go anywhere. And that's actually a common question I feel like we talk about on here. Like, what should we do with those? And kind of almost always come to the conclusion of just let them be, whatever. Count it for junk on the side. Because otherwise putting in like blocks on signups has been like, then you're weeding out the wrong people. But okay.
So you can do it on when you count it's activated, right? So we are playing with the idea that like until you've done X, we don't consider you anything.
Got it. Okay. So you have the signups and then you're looking at activated signups. And then from there, is that kind of where you're looking at those conversion rates?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So then one other quick background topic. Sorry, I'm jumping in here, but can you just give a quick high level overview again of sort of like what the product is so that we can better like visualize sort of like the go-to-market motion of that product?
Yeah. So everything you should be doing in a meeting, just making that significantly easier, right? So we're connected through the calendar and you have an agenda. It's shareable. It's shared ahead of time. It's available to both parties to collaborate on. You can have next steps. So creating accountability in the team, and those get tracked and can be integrated into other systems. And then we also have goals embedded in there. So if you're managing OKRs or otherwise. So if you think about what we ask managers to do other than their functional thing, it's trying to support all of those things. So the conversations they have, the performance management conversations and development they need to have, their managing of goals and projects and other things like that. But at its core, it's sort of an agenda with a whole bunch of good stuff hanging off of it and a whole bunch of embedded best practices to help people manage better. So our entry point really very often is a manager who doesn't know how to do one-on-ones. No one ever taught them, or they want to do it better than their last boss. And so they come, they try, and they go on. Or it's an executive or somebody who just wants meetings to be more efficient and effective. And again, comes in to solve their own problem. And then we ultimately kind of spread a bit naturally until we hit one of those departmental silos.
Got it. Okay, cool. All right. So they come in, we get a couple activated. We have these sort of virality pieces by people or network effects that naturally happen from the mutually shared calendar. All right. So now let's go into a little bit of the process. So someone comes in, what's it look like for them? What are the ways that you are thinking about like helping and enabling folks in that early start?
Yeah. So I definitely, some of the things I had to shed from a past life were just the idea of at least an initial stage of a true buyer. I'm dealing with solving individual use cases initially. So most of the focus initially is just on doing a little bit aided discovery. I will say that's having to change rapidly because we changed the tool rapidly. So I will say that I do wrestle a little bit with some of the activation that we were trying to do outside of the tool. So I think general advice, pushing as much of the activation right into the tool rather than any kind of communication is super helpful because the tool just changes so frequently. So there is some, automated onboarding differentiated for managers versus attendees, just to try and give them a little bit of the why are you here and what can you do and how can you make this better. That happens over the first, week or two. I think it's probably about 2 weeks. And then I do have a layer of sort of additional outreach that's trying to actually book a call. And that's a combination of the people I want to talk to and the people that look like they would, respond or benefit from it. So I do have some pretty simple firmographic barriers around there, because we do get a lot of small businesses, churches, educational institutes, lots of places where we're not likely to see a significant growth. We do know that, tech, growth tech is going to be our fastest to grow. So that's something we want to talk to, but also small divisions of large companies is another thing we can do, depending on the sort of mentality of how you can acquire tech in that company. So I'd have sort of a more curated reach out on top of that, that's trying to actually generate a conversation that would do some training. I've been playing around with what level of personalization is needed to really get that. I've been trying some more functional things. We have how engineers meet versus sales teams versus CS teams versus whoever is very different. And if I have an HR professional coming in, I want to talk to them about how we can help them kind of provide guidance and structure for their managers. So I've been layering in some, LinkedIn Connect and appending of functional information in there and having some level of success there, because it's just slightly more tailored to what is going to work for them. I'm trying to figure out how to get some slightly better product data, because it's not going to be one function that tells me something. It's going to be a combination that infers a use case. So I've definitely got some work to do on making that efficient and more relevant, but it's only a subset that I'm doing that with. Because one of the other things we've learned is that we have a risk of drop off around month 4. I've now put in what might be, so that first set of human intervention might more be considered a sales or an outbound kind of thing. And these ones might be called sort of a CS outreach. It's the same set of people that do it. We have no differentiation in teams right now because we're so small. But I've got sort of some communication set up through 90 days for paid accounts that brings in some of their usage data to try and just reconfirm that they are getting something from it, tie their activity to some benefit, that kind of thing. That I've only been doing for a couple of months. And so I don't feel like I have a strong enough set of cohort data to decide whether that's been worth it or not. But I do know that if I talk to someone, or if somebody on the team talks to someone, our retention goes up dramatically. I think that's probably no surprise. So I am looking for contextually relevant reasons to share some value with them that might prompt them to reach out to us. So we try to make it really easy to talk to us. That means I talk to a lot of randoms. I look at all of those right now as a learning experience. I'm going to burn through a lot of stuff. It's a way to test messaging and stuff. And again, I'm small enough that that's probably okay. But yeah, that's sort of where we're at.
Well, you started to get into a little bit answering Jacob's question here, but Jacob, do you want to come off mute and ask this, or else I can ask it for you as well?
Yeah, I'm somewhat new to this. I'm just curious to know, like, how you think through who's worth reaching out to, and also when is it the right time to trigger that outreach? It seems like people have a hard time knowing when in the life cycle it makes sense to reach out. What do you say? So I'm curious to know how you think through that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of it I inherited because it's sort of how the product works in terms of a trial period. So there's certainly, I am trying to reach out early to the people that initiated the sort of evaluation or trial of it. So it's a combination of, you've gotten past at least a couple of activation areas. So I've over time removed the true tire kickers. So people that got in there by accident, I can tell by, you need to have more than one session. You need to have done, there's a 2 or 3 kind of activities, adding an item, finishing meeting that tell me that you've done it on purpose. So I'm trying to get rid of anybody that sort of either did it by mistake or is just responding to marketing material and checking out some templates.
I guess I'm
In
also kind of
terms
wondering,
the timing, I don't have a good answer to.
right. Well, not only timing like in the individual user journey, but I'm like organizationally, when is it the right time to add humans to the product led motion? I guess it's something that I'm wondering about overall. Like, why do some orgs only have self-serve, and why do some add sales, and when do they do that?
Yeah,
I'm just wondering when the right time is for that.
Yeah, so I do have sort of a revenue or revenue potential threshold. So some of the things I know from, CS practices in enterprise, I've applied some of the same concepts in terms of segmentation there. So I am looking at what you are paying. So I do, no matter who you are, if you're paying above a certain amount, I am going to put some attention to you because that's meaningful revenue for us, at least at this stage. And that also helps me learn. I think we're still learning about our ICP. So anybody willing to spend a certain amount with us, I want to talk to them because I want to figure out whether I'm missing something. So I have just a baseline. What are you paying us at a certain level? You'll get some human interaction, but also what's the potential? So how much do you look like the people that have grown before? And I'll put more around there. It's hard to know it for sure. So I do talk to more people than I probably ever will again, because I can't make too many assumptions about value right now. What I have been looking at is who grows the fastest and stays the longest. And so I do a bunch of cohort analysis on that, but I'm to be honest, I'm just not that strict about it because right now information and learning is value. But I make, these are my must talk tos, or the people that are kind of the lookalikes of my fast growth, long-term customers. And then, sort of prioritize below there. I don't know how helpful the answer is, but.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
I think it can be like a combination of I think if you look historically at the way that we've run companies in more like sales led, ICP plays a big factor into it. So I think naturally that feels like a way for many companies to figure out which people you should talk to first is layering some ICP data. But I think also at the same time, yes, there can be sort of like this cohort of users that also match this ICP data. But then there's also going to be a cohort of users who don't match your ICP data, but are taking higher levels of actions in your product. And those folks should also be like, so if there were sort of like two cohorts that you were to start your thinking with, I'd say that's kind of where to begin. So some layering of ICP and then just sheer usage. And those two are probably good starting places for you to think about, okay, what are the conversations that we can have with people? And how can we make those conversations contextual to actually the actions that they've taken in our product and make our conversation about that and unlocking value for them and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and somebody has asked a question about sort of the influence on the roadmap. So we, I would say we will wait feedback from somebody that is in our current ICP, because that's who's growing the fastest, a little bit higher than somebody who sits outside of the ICP. But we do, but the prioritization, like any product team, it's got a lot of pieces in it. User feedback right now is probably the biggest, because we can make massive changes every time. So probably about every 3 or 4 months, we realize that we've kind of been working on big, hairy projects and haven't done much with the UI. And we go and spend, a couple cycles cleaning up sort of jankiness in the text entry or things that are confusing or otherwise, and our NPS will shoot up. And it's like a good reminder every like 2 or 3 months that when we pay attention to that, good things happen. But we do have to balance those things. And I think we probably rank how often we hear it combined with ICP in there. I have a CEO that likes to talk to users, which is a massive benefit. So he's talking to a couple users a week all the time. And he's still really running product management at the size we are. So that's helpful. We never get very far away from the user experience because it's the user that buys us right now, or at least is the biggest influence to buy over any sort of centralized IT or HR. I end up sometimes in IT, sometimes in HR, sometimes in the office of the CEO, sometimes in like a project management office, or otherwise it might be running a goals process. So I don't have one. I need a bunch of people to like me before I can talk to anybody.
Hey, Jocelyn, I got a question for you. I'm taking a look at the pricing page on Hypercontext right now, and it's like the free plan looks amazing, $0 per user per month, and then you have those added benefits for managers. My question is about sort of, I think you used the word virality, like trying to grow within the company. It's sort of a two-pronged question. Number one, how do you encourage other users to just sign up for free? Like, do they need to use the tool to engage in these meetings effectively? And B, it looks like the managers benefit from Pro. Is there any opportunity to get the other users to sign up for that paid thing, or is it mostly just the managers pay and then everybody else uses it for free?
So every user is paid. It's just that managers are the instigators.
Okay. Why am I looking at the free forever plan?
That you can as an organization use us for free forever.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So for a manager to grow their team, or to grow their team using the tool, they have to
they're paying for every user. Yeah. I mean, it's a per user model. We certainly have a lot of, I think if we've been talking a lot about the packaging and otherwise, as we sort of get into larger company communities and more traditional buyers, that is definitely putting some pressure on the way that we've sort of packaged. But for now, like, it's got, the starter plan where it's $5 a month for up to 5 people. Like, we've got lots of low friction ways to get experience or try the tool. That isn't necessarily, I think, where we'll land forever. Right now, so much of what we've done is really targeted just at pure acquisition. We just need volume of cycles coming through and people to talk to as we build it out. Once I'm talking to someone and we're talking in 300, 400, 500 and up communities, I'm straying pretty far from that list. We also have built-in volume discounts, right? So by the time you're up there, it's less than $1 a person, sort of thing.
All right, thanks, Jocelyn.
Yeah, we're not touching pricing and packaging right now, but it's a ever-growing concern. Right now, it's all about removing friction from trying it.
All right, we have about 4 minutes left, so I think we can get maybe 2 questions, maybe 1 in here, but it looks like we have some. Ben might have had one. Miles has a question, so either one of you, feel free to speak up.
Mine was already more or less answered, so Miles, go ahead.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Breezy. I guess as an early stage company, we're doing the same thing, right? We've got good amount of inbound. One of the things that I struggle with is getting people to just talk to us, like after they sign up immediately.
Totally.
We're sending automated emails, hitting them up on intercom, automating as much as we can on intercom, trying to call them, right? Many cases it's international, which is a challenge in our case, and we're in logistics. My startup's in logistics. So there's some challenges there, but I'm just curious what your tech stack looks like, Jocelyn, and how you're deploying it and how are you driving that kind of like human to human engagement, which sounds like good.
Yeah, so I don't have an outbound calling motion. I just don't have the capacity for it. And I'm not sure that would serve us necessarily because I'm not calling into an economic buyer really, but I could be 100% wrong about that. So our tech stack, we have intercom, which is chat, onboarding, messaging, and support. I am looking at some alternatives for bits and pieces of that right now. I have Vitally, which actually I find to be a really good tool because it aggregates the data around accounts in a much easier way for me. And so that's where most of my CS actions or post-purchase actions happen. And some level of automation plus some sort of more prompted, so tasks created automatically for people to prioritize. And then I do use HubSpot for the true demos or really early stage interest that needs to be developed and coached. For HubSpot, I don't have an automated sort of PQL motion right now. I'm doing some reports out of Vitally because I find their segmentation really easy to use. We have a segment for our activity data. Our basic toolings, I mean, we use Mixpanel for a bunch of my analytics and cohort analysis, but my tools day to day are Intercom, Vitally, and HubSpot.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All fed by segment and Stripe.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the other piece of that. Oh, actually, in ProfitWell. The more I think about it, the more tools I'll come up with, but me, hands on keyboard, touching things, it's those first three are the primary.
Awesome. Thank you. Super helpful. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I want to be cognizant of time. I know you had a hard stop, Jocelyn. So thanks so
I have
much.
a customer call. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Thanks so much. Thanks for all the questions, everybody.
Yeah, connect on LinkedIn. I'll accept them all. I gotta go. Otherwise, I'd put my link in there quickly. But yeah, awesome. Happy to contribute anyway, and definitely still learning. So happy to chat with people offline.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you.